Welcome to Thought Frontier.
All right, strap in, everyone. We are going deep today, deep into quantum physics and spirituality.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic these days.
Oh, yeah. Just look at this stack of articles and book excerpts.
Yeah.
Some wild titles in this pile, I gotta say.
Hey, see, you've got a mix of perspectives in there too.
Yeah.
We've got physicists trying to figure out what their discoveries actually mean, you know?
Right.
Spiritual teachers saying, hey, this sounds familiar. And then, of course, the skeptics in the corner saying, hold on, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Exactly. Is this a science textbook, a spiritual guidebook, or maybe both? Our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to sift through all this, see what connections we can find,
Yeah.
and hopefully, unearth some thought-provoking questions for everybody listening.
Sounds good to me. So let's just start with some basics here.
Okay.
Without getting bogged down, what do you think are the most mind-bending aspects of quantum physics that make people want to connect it to spirituality?
I think even trying to explain quantum physics to someone is like trying to explain a dream.
Yeah.
So you have things like superposition, where particles exist in multiple states at once until they're observed. And it's not just that we don't know what state they're in, it's that they seem to genuinely be in all states simultaneously.
Yeah, that's the thing that really breaks down like our intuition.
Yes.
Because in our day-to-day world, things have definite properties.
Right.
Like a coin is heads or tails, but not both.
Right.
But in the quantum realm, it seems like just by looking, we force the universe to pick a side.
Yeah, and so then that begs the question, what is the role of consciousness in all this? Are we actually influencing reality? I mean, this is like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right.
But it's actual science.
Exactly.
And you have entanglement, which Einstein called spooky action at a distance.
Oh, yeah. Entanglement, that's the one that really captures people's imagination.
Oh, yeah.
Two particles, potentially light years apart, doing this weird linked dance where whatever happens to one instantly affects the other.
Instantaneous.
It really does make you wonder if maybe, just maybe, the mystics were onto something all along.
Right.
Because if these tiny particles can be so connected, is it such a stretch to think that everything is connected at some deep level?
Right. And it's not just entanglement. I mean, this idea of an observer influencing reality.
Yeah.
That also resonates with spiritual practices like mindfulness and meditation.
Absolutely.
Where you're really focused on cultivating a heightened sense of awareness of the present moment.
Yeah, so many spiritual traditions talk about our thoughts and intentions having the power to shape reality.
Yeah.
And in some ways, quantum physics seems to back that up.
Right. But then you have the skeptics. They're saying, hold on. Let's not go too far here.
Yeah, right.
There's a danger in taking these analogies too far and then misinterpreting the science to fit some kind of spiritual narrative.
Yeah, I mean, and you always have to be careful about the difference between scientific evidence and metaphors, right?
Right.
Like, quantum physics might give us a new way of looking at the universe, but it doesn't necessarily prove that there's a God or, that every spiritual claim is true.
Where you got to keep your critical thinking cap on.
Yeah.
Even while you're, kind of having your mind blown. It's like walking a tightrope between like wonder and skepticism.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
This whole area where quantum physics and spirituality intersect, it's a delicate dance between being open-minded, but also not losing your critical thinking skills. You gotta have both.
I think even the skeptics have to admit that quantum physics has really thrown a wrench in our understanding of how things actually work.
Oh, yeah. It's totally challenged all those assumptions about how the universe works. It's almost like there's a different rule book at the quantum level.
Right.
And we're only starting to figure out what the rules are.
Which leads to the question, if the universe is stranger than we ever imagined, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our place in all of this?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a question that a lot of spiritual traditions have been asking for centuries.
Right.
What's exciting is that quantum physics might actually have some clues.
I'm curious about that. So like you mentioned yoga, tantra, Hindu cosmology, all of these different spiritual traditions.
Right.
How do those connect to the quantum world? What are the specific overlaps that people are getting excited about?
Ooh, that is a great question and a perfect lead-in to our next point.
Okay.
One of the most interesting things is this idea of the divine matrix.
Ooh, divine matrix.
Which is really similar to the idea of entanglement in quantum physics. It's like a spiritual way of understanding how everything is interconnected.
It sounds very Matrix movie.
Yeah, it kind of is.
But instead of being plugged into a computer simulation, it's more like we're all woven into this web of energy.
Yeah, imagine the universe like a giant tapestry.
Okay.
Every single thread is connected to every other thread.
So instead of thinking of everything as, like, separate objects, it's really just this one unified field of energy and information.
Exactly. And, that's an idea that resonates with a lot of ancient traditions, like Hindu cosmology. Their ancient texts describe this vast cosmos, all interconnected, multiple layers.
Right.
And then you look at yoga and tantra, they see the human body as like a miniature universe. You've got energy centers and pathways, just like the energy flows in the cosmos.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these ancient systems, they came up with these ideas just through introspection, through spiritual practices.
Right.
And now modern physics is sort of catching up.
It really is. And it makes you think, if everything is really connected at that deep level, it kind of changes how you think about individual action, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because, like, if you pluck one thread in this tapestry, the whole thing is going to ripple.
It changes everything. The way we think about the environment, how we treat each other, it suggests a level of responsibility that goes way beyond just ourselves.
It's like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
But on a cosmic scale. And, it makes me think about the observer effect in quantum physics. Like, if our observations can influence the way particles behave, maybe our intentions, our actions, are actually having a ripple effect on this whole field of energy.
Now, that is a thought-provoking idea.
Yeah.
It brings us right back to consciousness. If consciousness is actually fundamental to reality, like some physicists are suggesting, then maybe our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions have a much bigger impact than we ever realized.
It's exciting.
It is.
And also a little scary. It's like we have the potential to co-create reality, but we also have to be responsible for that power.
It completely changes how we think about spiritual practice.
Totally.
It's not just about personal well-being anymore. It's about consciously shaping our relationship with the entire universe.
It's like leveling up from passive observer to active participant.
Exactly. And that brings us to another mind-blowing idea that pops up in both quantum physics and spirituality. Multiple worlds.
Okay, yeah, now we're getting into trippy territory.
Right.
The idea of countless parallel universes existing right alongside our own, I mean, how do you even wrap your head around that?
Yeah, and the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics says that every time a quantum measurement happens, reality splits.
Okay.
Like every decision creates a whole new universe. So potentially there are infinite parallel worlds out there.
So there's a world out there where I made a different choice. Maybe I have superpowers in another dimension. The possibilities are endless.
Exactly. Infinite possibilities, it's a mind-boggling concept. But some very serious physicists take it very seriously.
Right.
And the really interesting thing is that the idea of multiple worlds is not new to spirituality either.
Right, like in the ancient Vedic texts from Hinduism, they talk about all these different universes with their own sets of laws.
Exactly. It's like a cosmic multiverse. And some spiritual practices, like certain types of yoga and meditation, are all about expanding your consciousness.
Okay.
So you can perceive and interact with these other realms.
So it's not just science fiction anymore.
It's not. It's like science and spirituality are both pointing to this vast, multidimensional reality.
Wow.
A reality that we are just beginning to glimpse.
So we've got entanglement, observer effect, multiple worlds. I mean, the connections between quantum physics and spirituality really do seem to be stacking up.
Yeah. And if we dive into the concept of energy, we'll see even more convergence.
Okay.
At the most fundamental level, quantum physics tells us that everything is energy. Particles are basically just vibrations in these quantum fields.
Right, and that idea lines up perfectly with tons of spiritual traditions that have been saying the same thing for centuries.
Right.
Like that old Hermetic principle, as above, so below.
Exactly. It's like the energy patterns of the universe are reflected in us, in our bodies.
Right. So it's not just that we're physical beings, we're also energetic beings. We're constantly interacting with this like web of energy that permeates everything.
Exactly. Which leads to a really important question. If everything is energy, then what about matter? The stuff we can see and touch every day.
Yeah, that's what always gets me. If it's all just energy vibrating at different frequencies, how come my desk feels so solid?
Right. And that's where it gets even more fascinating.
Yeah.
Quantum physics suggests that matter isn't as solid as it looks.
Okay.
Particles are constantly popping in and out of existence.
Really?
Yeah, emerging from this quantum vacuum and then dissolving back into it.
So like the chair I'm sitting on, the table over there, they're not really solid. It's more like the universe is constantly creating and dissolving everything.
That's a great way to put it. It's like this dynamic dance of energy and information.
That's a pretty cool way to think about it.
Yeah, and the idea that the universe is basically like a thought, a vibration That resonates with some of the interpretations of quantum physics where consciousness is seen as fundamental.
Okay.
It suggests that consciousness might actually play a role in shaping the universe we experience.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But it is kind of liberating to think that maybe reality isn't this fixed, predetermined thing.
Right. It really opens up the possibilities.
Yeah.
And it aligns with the idea in some spiritual traditions that we're co-creators of our reality.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. All this talk about consciousness shaping reality can sound kind of woo.
It can.
Like, am I really supposed to believe that my thoughts can move mountains?
Right, and that's where discernment comes in.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to distinguish between genuine scientific inquiry and, interpretations that might go beyond the evidence.
Right, and be wary of anyone who's trying to use quantum jargon to push an agenda.
Absolutely.
Whether it's selling self-help books or pushing some kind of spiritual dogma.
Exactly. The real value of exploring quantum physics and spirituality is that it expands our understanding of reality.
Yeah.
Challenges those old assumptions, and inspires awe and wonder.
It's about recognizing that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Excellent.
And that this universe is constantly unfolding in ways that we're just starting to understand.
Exactly.
So I think it's safe to say that we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, definitely.
So how about we dig into some specific examples of how these spiritual traditions connect with the quantum world?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm really interested in that, especially this divine matrix you were talking about.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept.
It sounds like it's got some major aha moments in store for us.
It does. It does. Get ready to have your mind blown.
I am ready.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. So this idea of a divine matrix, it's a term that some spiritual teachers and authors use to describe how everything in the universe is interconnected.
Okay, so it's like we're not plugged into a computer simulation like in the Matrix movie, but we're all woven into this energetic web.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the universe is this giant tapestry, and every single thread is connected to every other thread. Yeah. And this idea actually lines up really well with the whole quantum entanglement thing we were talking about.
Right, where particles are linked across vast distances.
Exactly. So instead of thinking about everything as these separate, isolated things, we start to see the universe as this unified field of energy and information.
Okay.
And that idea actually resonates with a lot of ancient spiritual traditions. Like you mentioned Hindu cosmology earlier.
Yeah.
Their ancient texts describe this incredibly vast, multi-layered cosmos. Different planes of existence, but all interconnected.
Right. And in traditions like yoga and tantra,
yeah,
the human body is seen as like this mini version of the universe.
Yes.
You've got energy centers and pathways that mirror these larger cosmic energy flows.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how these ancient systems, which were developed through deep introspection and spiritual practices,
right,
seem to be converging with modern physics in some really interesting ways.
Totally. And if everything is connected at this fundamental level, that totally changes how we think about individual action, right?
Yeah.
Like if I pluck one thread in that tapestry, it's going to send ripples throughout the whole thing.
Absolutely. And that has huge implications for how we treat the environment, how we relate to each other, everything.
It's like the butterfly effect, but on a cosmic scale.
Right.
And it makes me think about that observer effect in quantum physics.
Yes.
Like if our observations can actually influence how those particles behave,
right,
maybe our intentions and our actions also have some kind of ripple effect on this energy field. As mind-blowing as all of this is, I can see how it would be really easy to get carried away, to just start believing everything anyone tells you, especially if they're throwing in some fancy quantum terminology.
Yeah, exactly. We need to be smart about the information we're taking in. We have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Okay. So how do we do that? What are some red flags to look out for when we're exploring these ideas? I think one of the biggest ones is when someone is using quantum physics to try and prove something.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to spiritual ideas or beliefs.
Right.
Quantum physics is a science.
Yeah.
So it's all about testing, gathering evidence.
Right.
So if you hear someone making these big claims about quantum physics proving this or that spiritual idea, always ask yourself, where's the proof?
Exactly. Like, I'm all about exploring these connections.
Yeah.
But you got to have that healthy skepticism.
You do. You do. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? And be careful of anyone who's trying to, quantumize everything, saying that quantum physics proves ESP or, psychic powers, or that you can manifest anything you want just by thinking about it.
Right. You're like, I love the idea of positive thinking, but come on, let's not turn quantum physics into some kind of magic wand.
Yeah, exactly. Quantum physics is really cool for understanding the universe, but it's not magic.
It's not magic. And it's important to remember that science is a process. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
What we know today could be different tomorrow.
Exactly. That's the beauty of science, right?
Yeah.
Always pushing the boundaries, always learning new things. So, even though it's tempting to see quantum physics as proof of certain spiritual ideas, we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
It's all about finding that balance, right?
It is.
Being open to new ideas, but also keeping a critical eye.
Yeah, it's a delicate dance. The intersection of science and spirituality is a fertile ground.
Yeah.
But you can definitely stumble into some misinterpretations. We have to be careful with the information we're taking in.
Right.
Question assumptions and get different perspectives.
I think it's also helpful to remember that science relies on evidence, things we can measure.
Right.
Whereas spiritual experiences are very personal and subjective.
Exactly. So even though there might be these cool connections between science and spirituality, they operate on different levels. One is about the measurable world. The other is about personal experience.
But I think even with those caveats, exploring the intersection of quantum physics and spirituality can be so enriching.
Oh, yeah.
It just opens up your mind to new possibilities.
It does. It does.
It challenges our limited way of looking at the world. It makes you feel awe and wonder.
Absolutely. It's about fostering that sense of curiosity, being open-minded, but staying grounded.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about realizing that we're part of something much, much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
A universe that's constantly unfolding in ways that we're just starting to understand.
So as we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If, as quantum physics suggests, the observer plays a role in shaping reality, what kind of reality are you choosing to observe? What kind of reality are you creating through your own thoughts, beliefs, and actions?
It's something to think about. This whole deep dive has been a journey into a realm where the very fabric of reality seems to shimmer and shift. We've explored the mind-bending world of quantum physics, the interconnectedness of everything through entanglement, the power of consciousness.
We've delved into those spiritual implications of these discoveries, the echoes of ancient wisdom, and how important it is to be discerning as we navigate this amazing landscape.
Absolutely. And this is really just the beginning. This deep dive is just the starting point. The exploration continues as you dig deeper into these concepts and figure out what they mean for you. This journey of understanding is a personal one.
And we are so glad you joined us for it. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive.